Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, basketball fans of all ages, I am Beast Mikey. You've now arrived at my train of thought. It's time to do the power rankings. And no, I did not forget. They're going to get the preview of the Where Do We Go From Here series after the basketball power rankings. Let's not waste any more time and get to business. You already know where we're going to start. The 72, 73, 76ers tier. Washington. Capitals are great. Surprisingly, the Washington Capitals have the best record in the Eastern Conference and are 2 points shy of the Winnipeg Jets of the most points in the NHL. Now, they've won some President's Trophies in the last 10 years, the Caps have, and then gone on to immediately fail after winning said President's Trophies. But the Capitals are looking really good this year as Alex Ovechkin is taking aim at Wayne Gretzky's scoring record. The Wizards are also pretty bad, and they've had their average, standard, terrible week, but that's beside the point. It kind of happens. We should expect it by now. Charlotte, ACC tournament. Yep, the ACC tournament's going to move the Hornets out of the Spectrum Arena, and it's going to see a lot of the great basketball, Duke, UNC, all the rest of them, Wake Forest, Notre Dame, all the rest of them, from the men's and the women's teams in the Charlotte and in the Greensboro areas. That's going to be fun to see, even if the Hornets are not. But they're going to sell out those buildings in North Carolina for the ACC tournament like they wouldn't do for the Hornets. That's beside the point. I'm going to stay in college basketball a little bit with this next one. Utah. BYU is good. I actually did the BYU-Arizona State game last week, and BYU is a pretty solid team, at least the men's team is. I did the Arizona State feed, by the way. BYU is looking very productive, very potent, but the Jazz are not. This is a standard, relatively bad week on their end. And I would have said, go watch the Utah hockey team, but they, A, refuse to call themselves the Yeti, and B, aren't very good themselves, so I feel kind of bad for you guys in Utah for that. Philadelphia. Shut down Paul George. They've already shut down Joel Embiid. Please let him get the surgery. Don't be stubborn about this. And I think need to shut down Paul George for similar reasons. This season is a wash. This season is a waste. There's no point in doing this. Let's just get to the draft lottery and hope and pray for the Sixers' sake that their pick doesn't fall to 7 or worse, because then their pick isn't their pick. It ends up becoming Oklahoma City's. That is not a great situation. So I would suggest just shut down Paul George, and if you got to shut down Tyrese Maxey for some ridiculous injury, okay, cool, fine. But to be honest, there's no point in playing the rest of this. New Orleans. Zion looks good. Now, yeah, Zion isn't playing a full season, sure. And yeah, Zion's still playing south of 30 minutes a night. Understood. But when he plays, he plays. Last night against the Lakers, he was very impressive. He didn't even play 30 minutes, and he was absolutely cooking the Lakers. Now, granted, LA doesn't have a front line to really bang with Zion, but he was cooking. And Zion's field goal percentage is just ridiculous. So you at least have something with him, even if the rest of your season is an abject disaster. Toronto, 2 Disney wins. And by Disney, I mean Orlando. They played both games against the Magic in their building, Orlando's building, last week, and won by a combined 3 points. This may or may not come back to bite the Magic later on this year, and for playoff seeding purposes, but I'll get into that when I talk about Orlando. And now let's get to the 71-72 Phoenix Suns tier. Chicago, 10 seed awaits. I think we know that 10 teams are going to make the Eastern playoffs, and regardless of what really 7 through 10 truly do, not much is going to change this. The Bulls are going to be the 10 seed more than likely, unless they completely collapse, and the 11 seed Brooklyn Nets make a generational run. I just don't think they have the talent enough to do that. Chicago's probably your 10 seed, and I guess that's a good thing because it means status quo is being kept in the Windy City. Brooklyn, Sixers in 8. I said last week that the Sixers lost to the Brooklyn Nets twice. Good, fine, cool. The problem is the Nets in their last 10 are 0-8 against teams that aren't playing at Wells Fargo Center for their home games. That's not so great. And the Nets season is cratering as we would expect it to, where it's just not going anywhere. That's fine. But we'll see you draft lottery night, ideally with your Cams and especially Nick Claxton as well. Let's see if those three of them can continue to build something. Can Brooklyn attract a star? That's going to be the other question that needs to be said. Phoenix showed some heart. There have been instances this season, and I think we've seen a lot of them on national television, where the Phoenix Suns just don't have really any type of motivation or heart or effort on defense, and it's maddening to their fan bases. You can hear the boos. You heard some of them last night in the Clipper game and against Minnesota, or see that people laugh at them or get trolled on radio. I've heard several responses about that. And then last night's fourth quarter happens against the Clippers. Sure, LA kind of sort of self-destructed, but they also, Phoenix did, played really well. Their bench played really well. Obviously, Durant and Booker did what Durant and Booker do, but they played just very good ball. And that's impressive. This is the kind of ball that Phoenix is going to have to play if they want to do something, anything, about making the playoffs. San Antonio, back-to-back. And no, it's not about win streaks and things of that nature. We're not there yet with San Antonio. This is more so about potentially having the back-to-back rookies of the year. Victor Wembanyama, who was a unanimous winner last year, and Stephen Castle, who could very well win it this year. Castle's played tremendously well now that he's getting some more playing time over the last few weeks. He had a big game against Memphis and a solid game against Brooklyn as well. So it's a good to see Stephen Castle take to the tutelage of Chris Paul, who, as we've seen over the years, has been good at helping out the younger point guards in the game that happen to be his teammates. Good to see that. De'Aaron Fox doesn't need as much tutelage from CP3 to hit and make clutch shots like he did against Memphis, but De'Aaron Fox can also learn some things from CP3. Never a bad thing in his part. Portland, gaining momentum. Hey, the Blazers are on a bit of a win streak. Is it too late to make the playoffs? Sure, yeah, probably. But the Blazers are starting to look a little bit better as of late. That's impressive to see. I think I've said this maybe before, and I've said this a couple of times in previous weeks. I do want to see if Portland can develop some sort of direction. Develop some sort of, okay, we have a base, we have something stable, let's do something with it. I do want to see that from the Blazers. Is this the start of it? Time will tell. And Dallas, Murphy's Law trade. It's a shame, really, because the Mavericks had a real shot to get back to the NBA Finals before the Luka trade. A month later, it's been, Luka gets traded. And then right after that, you get the terrible press conference with Nico Harrison when Jason Cater didn't want to be there at all. And then the first game Anthony Davis plays, he lasts 3 quarters. He balled out. He lasts 3 quarters, and then he gets hurt. He hasn't been back since. And you see, while all this is happening, Luka and LeBron and the Lakers are absolutely scorching and terrorizing the West. Meanwhile, Kyrie Irving just 2 nights ago tears his ACL, and it just has been a disaster class. And they've raised ticket prices. So the basketball gods said, all right, bet Kyrie's out for the year and probably out for the next year and a half, maybe 2. It is a brutal stretch for a Dallas Mavericks team that had probably almost everything go their way, and then they make this Luka trade and sabotage their futures. Ouch. Now let's get to the 93-94 Nuggets tier. Miami, crucial game tonight. As I speak, the Heat are playing the Cavaliers. Obviously, Cleveland being the best team in basketball. As I am currently saying things, Miami's actually up by 1 in said game. This is a crucial game. I know they're playing this without Tyler Hero. I do need to see Miami kind of sort of do something here. Are you going to make any sort of headway? Because teams 7 through 10 feel like one and dones, no matter which 2 see Cleveland and Boston. But I need to see if Miami can actually do something. Can Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero kind of try to be 1A guys? Need to see it. Orlando, potentially haunting losses. Those Raptor losses happened to Orlando, as I mentioned. Where will this put the Magic when it comes to playoff seeding? Now, yeah, they're probably locked in anywhere between 7 and 10, probably 7 through 9, really. But will Atlanta host in the play-in tournament rounds? That's something we need to see. Will Orlando be able to make a run to get to the 6th seed? Something I would need to see. The loss of Jalen Suggs is a pretty big one. And though Banchero and Wagner have played really well, I do need to see if the guard play can keep up. That will be vital. Atlanta, 7th seed possible. It's going to be a race between Atlanta and the Florida teams for 7, 8, and 9. Could Chicago get there? I don't think so, but I'm not going to assume anything there. The Hawks had a standard mediocre week, nothing special, nothing awful, but at least as long as Trae Young is there, they got a fighting chance to stay in home court advantage territory, at least for the play-in round. Whereas we know the loser of the 7-8 game does host the winner of the 9-10. So at least Atlanta is on the board to host 1, maybe 2 games if they are the 7th seed. LA Clippers, brutal week. Now, I mentioned last week that there was a showdown last Friday between the Lakers and Clippers at the Crypt. The Lakers won that game, and then they had a rematch later on between last Friday and today. The Lakers also won that game. LeBron and Luka did their thing in both games. Not great for the Clippers. But then last night, they went to Phoenix, LA did, and okay, they had a 20-point lead, and they were dominating. They were basically making sure that the Suns were getting booed out of their building because there was zero effort whatsoever through 36 minutes against to stop the Clippers from doing anything in the paint or getting wide open shots. The fourth quarter changed everything, and the Clippers completely crumbled. Phoenix showed heart, yes, but it takes 2 to dance here, and the Clippers somehow self-destructed hilariously. This was a pretty brutal loss for a Clipper team that I would say they're going to be okay, only because I'm not sure if 2 of the 3 teams that are 10, 11, 12, i.e., I should say 11, 12, 13, that would be Phoenix, San Antonio, and Portland. I would have to think only one of those teams is going to actually jump, maybe Dallas. The Clippers are 9th. In theory, the Clippers should be all right, but this is a very alarming loss because they got absolutely shredded by the likes of Connor Gillespie and Mason Plumlee. Kevin Durant did this thing too, but Gillespie and Plumlee absolutely shredded the Clippers in the fourth quarter. Not great. Minnesota, pretty steady. This is another ho-hum team this past week. Anthony Edwards cooked. He had a 40-piece against the Sixers. Cool. We kind of expect that by now. Nothing really special happened here. I mean, Rudy Gobert missed time, but he tends to do that a lot this year. Can Gobert be healthy enough for a playoff run? We're going to need to see that. Can he and Julius Randle gel and mesh better, considering the half-court offenses and the half-court sets that they're going to see when it's go time and showtime in the playoffs? That will be something that needs to be seen. And now that everyone's going to see Minnesota coming, can Minnesota make another deep run like they did last year? Only time will tell. And Sacramento, sneaky hot. Don't look now, but the Kings are really starting to get things rolling. They have been very productive over the last 10 games. They've won 7 of them. And Sacramento's offense is still rolling. DeRozan playing well. Though they did lose Sabonis for an injury. That's rather unfortunate. They are getting good contributions from DeRozan and Levine. Now, I obviously am going to need to see what happens tonight with them in Denver. And I'm going to want to see Sabonis get back. Because upon Sabonis returning, then they will be relatively fine. Jonas Valanciunas can hold it down for a minute, but Sabonis coming back for a playoff run will be vital because he is a very good big man. Speaking of the Kings, the 0-2 Sacramento tier. Indiana should be okay. This wasn't that great of a week for the Pacers either, to be honest. They look like they're going to be a decent team. They look like they're going to be a respectable team. Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton and company. I don't know if they're a team that's going to get out of round 1, depending on their matchup. Maybe if they get Milwaukee again, they can use their speed and their ability to just beat people in track meets. But I am a little concerned about Indiana in terms of getting out of round one. We'll see what happens when it comes to their first round matchup. Golden State, Steph's historical place. So Shaquille O'Neal, as we all know, brought up an interesting topic. Is Steph Curry a top 10 player of all time? I would argue no, but it's not without really thinking about it. The guys I would say are locks better than Steph, I would say are Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Magic, Duncan, Wilt, Russell, Kobe, I would say Larry Bird are definite better. Those 9 guys. And now we're starting the fight at 10. I would say Hakeem Olajuwon at 10, but I think that's where the fight starts, is Olajuwon, Shaq, and Steph probably are the next 3, 10, 11, and 12. Jokic will eventually be in this discussion. Giannis will eventually be in this discussion. But to me, that's your probably top 12 players of all time. Where Steph fits, maybe if he's able to get Title V, he probably does get out of this 10 to 12 discussion and in the, I would say, 6 to 8 discussion. No matter where you slot him, it's almost impossible to tell the story of the NBA without Steph Curry because he's the greatest shooter that we've ever seen. Milwaukee, also sneaky hot. Just like the Kings and Warriors, like I just talked about, they are starting to find their groove, the Bucks are. They are firmly entrenched as the 4 seed, and they've won 8 of 10. There's minor injury issues with Dame Lillard, but I think Dame would play if this were a playoff game, so that's fine. Not to mention the fact that Giannis is continuing to cook because, of course, Giannis does that. It's just impressive work by Milwaukee to kind of stay under the radar and at the same time remain a viable team that can get out of the first round. And if Giannis goes Super Saiyan again, maybe even further than that. Houston, a little concerned. This was not a great week for the Rockets. They're only here because their record is better than the 3 teams below them overall. But this was not a great week for the Rockets. I am starting to get a little concerned. Do I think this is a learning experience year? Yes. Do I think that Houston is absolutely primed for a one-and-done type season in the playoffs or appearance in the playoffs? Yeah, definitely, depending on the team in question. Yes, they have a lot of depth pieces, but not a lot of experience in the postseason, sans Van Fleet and Dillon Brooks. I am a little concerned about the Rockets. Can they get it together? Detroit, All-NBA Cade. I think we got to start talking about Cade Cunningham as a All-NBA player. Now, there's no shot, don't get it confused, no chance of him getting on first team. That's probably going to be some combination, definitely SGA, and then either Anthony Edwards or maybe Jason Tatum if you put him at the 2 spot. You're putting him at the 3 probably. Maybe Jalen Brunson gets the first team, but I think it's going to probably be SGA and Anthony Edwards in terms of your first team All-NBA dudes. Can you put Cade Cunningham on second team? I think it's in play that you could. Now, he's fighting with Brunson for second team, but I think it's on the board that you can put him on second team and not look completely foolish. There's a reason why the Pistons are rolling, and he's the primary one for this, and that Detroit is the hottest team in the game, even with a loss to Denver. Now, there's no shame in losing to the Nuggets, but it's on the board that you can put Cade Cunningham on an All-NBA team, and that's a sentence I don't think any of us were suggesting over if we were talking about this back in October. But Detroit has earned that, and so has Cade. Memphis, an awful week. This was an ugly week for the Grizzlies. They had several losses that were just head-scratchers. Losing to San Antonio at home without Victor Wembanyama, even though De'Aaron Fox is like that, is not great. Losing to Atlanta in another high-scoring game. They gave up 130 in both games, at least. 132 to Atlanta, 130 to the Spurs. Both losses at home, both losses by 2. Those are going to be some losses that are just brutal L's to take if Memphis doesn't get the 2 seed. And losing to the Knicks, also by 2. Also not great. That's not great there. But in the next few minutes, they will be playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. on ESPN. It was going to be a really fun game. John Morant versus SGA, if John Morant's playing. Desmond Bane and Jalen Williams and Chet and potentially Zach Edey or whomever. Jalen Jackson's going to be out, so it's going to have to be Edey playing the role of the big man here. This is a vital game for Memphis and a game that I think the Grizzlies have to win to kind of just get some momentum back and get some things back on track here. And now let's get to the 95-96 Bulls here. New York, still round 2. I just talked about how Memphis lost to the Knicks. Okay, that is a good win for New York. But I still don't think the Knicks are better than Boston or Cleveland. They'll still feel like 5 or 6 game series to me when it comes to the Knicks. They should get out of round 1. I think they're going to be fine in their first round matchup simply because Detroit's just not ready for this life. But I think they are a round 2 ceiling, and I think it's pretty obvious by now. Denver, 2nd seed fight. Going into the Nuggets-Lakers game a couple of weeks ago, I would have thought, okay, Denver will take care of business. They'll stay relatively hot, and will probably move onward and upward to the 2 seed and be really the main Western challenger to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Then the Lakers promptly blew out the Nuggets in Denver, and now they're going to have to fight for the 2 seed. They're a half game back currently of said Lakers, who have been incredibly hot since LeBron and Luka joined forces. In 2 weeks from tonight, I should say, Lakers, Nuggets at the Crypt. It is appointment viewing, and it might just determine who the 2 seed in the Western Conference will be, because let's face it, these are 2 squads that are playing incredibly good ball right now with 4, I would say, top 15 to 20-ish players this year in Jokic, LeBron, and Jamal Murray, and Luka. So, appointment viewing to see this rematch go down in LA. Speaking of LA, the Lakers. No chemistry issues. Luka is playing well as the maestro. LeBron is playing well off the ball. He just got to 50,000 last night, and he's looking pretty much every bit as good as he's always been. And it's on the board that LeBron is an MVP candidate. It's on the board that he's first team All-NBA again. Simply because that's just how he gets down and gets busy. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Lakers, even with their lack of size. And so far, the lack of size isn't coming back to bite them. Can Jackson Hayes continue to improve? He played well last night against the Pelicans. He continued to improve and become the much-needed size that the Lakers are going to desperately need to get out of the Western Conference. Boston, that Cavs loss. That 25-3 score was looking like a legendary meme. It was looking like, okay, Cleveland's going to have the best record, but Boston looks like far and away the better team. And if Boston and Cleveland were able to battle each other in the presumed conference final, Boston takes care of business, and they're going to go on to the NBA Finals once again. But then a funny thing happened on the way to thinking that. As it turns out, the Cavaliers fought back hard to the point of, oh, they can get beat, Boston can, and they can lose in a demoralizing fashion. That pretty much all but should seal the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, I should say, with Cleveland. Boston will be the 2, sure, but that's got to be a really interesting and really bad loss. Sure, Boston came back and beat Denver, and I think they'll do fine against the Lakers tomorrow, where they have a showdown that's appointment viewing. But that Cleveland loss is going to be very intriguing to think about going forward if they were able to battle each other in the conference final. Oklahoma City, SGA MVP. Not much else left to be said. I mean, they were getting it taken to them by the Spurs on Sunday night, and then promptly what ended up happening was SGA got hot, and Jalen Williams got hot, and the Thunder defense got ridiculous, and suddenly what turned from, it looked like it was going to be a Spurs win because San Antonio played so well in that first half, turned into, oh, they aren't going to beat the Thunder. And Oklahoma City turned out to an easy 20-point win because of how well they played. Like I said before, they played Memphis at the bottom of the hour. I'm looking forward to watching that game and how that's going to go down. But SGA is going to win the MVP. The real question is who's going to finish second here. And Cleveland can clinch tonight. As I mentioned earlier, the Heat were winning by 1 when I talked about Miami and these power rankings. And I'm going to talk about this game again right now, where Cleveland is currently down by 6. So they may not clinch tonight. There's about 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter of this game. Regardless, Cleveland's going to have the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. The only question will they be number 1 overall? And this really only comes into play when it comes to an eventual conference final game against an NBA Finals matchup, I should say, against the Thunder if both teams get there. Cleveland's looking really good, obviously. Mobley and Mitchell and Garland and the crew, Jared Allen as well, they're all looking real good. But is Cleveland going to be ready for the playoffs? That will be something that we will need to see when it's go time and the postseason. So there you have it. Those are your power rankings for this week. And now we're going to get to the question that all 32 fan bases are asking about their teams. Where do we go from here? And as you see the order of operations of how I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this once again, division by division. And this will probably start Friday as we lead up to the NFL season, NFL year calendar-wise, truly starting. So how I'm going to do this, I'll talk about each team individually and how their season kind of went and their key free agents, draft picks, salary cap situations, all that good stuff. And we'll go day by day. So it'll kind of be an updating total with some salary cap picks and some roster movements as teams either A, stay under the cap, B, get under the cap, or C, be New Orleans, find a way to hope and pray to get close to the cap. But you're going to see all these teams in the order of operations. How did I determine it? It was simple, basically by playoff wins and playoff appearances, things like that, based off your division and how far some teams went in the cases of Buffalo and Kansas City and things like that. So you'll see that starting Friday, and obviously there will be some big moves that have already happened with the Joe Tooney trade, with the Deebo Samuel trade, with the request from DK Metcalf to get out, plus the end of the Tyler Lockett era in the Emerald City. There's a lot that's already happened, but the NFC South will be the first stop of my next train of thought.